dirty truth about drawing. Well, these days, the one thing that I really don't hear a lot about is tracing. I see it a lot, and it's really, people talk about it on forums, so I read about it on forums and different groups and things like that, but no one really talks about it or discusses it. So, for me, I really don't have a problem with the way people create their art. I think everyone's different. I think there's so many different kinds of art. Almost anything can really be considered art if you think about it. So I don't have a problem with people tracing. Even I trace sometimes myself. We'll get into that. But I really don't have a problem with tracing. I think the issue comes up with whether it's a drawing or whether it's a graphic design. And I think that most tracing usually becomes a graphic design. So let's say you have a project for a client and they want a frog riding a bicycle. So you're either gonna, that's a very difficult and a very precise thing. So if you want to do a graphic design of it, so you're basically just gonna, you probably find a frog, you can cut it out, sort of make it look like it's on the bike, paste the bike on there, find a picture of a bike, paste it on there, and then you can literally trace it, and then you can make it like 2 or 3 colors, and you have a beautiful graphic design. And that's art. Even though you traced it, it's still art. But if it's a drawing, then you might do the same thing where you find a bike and find a frog, collage them together, but you draw from it. So that's the difference. You'll look at it and say, how can I dumb this down and kind of make it look like, have that animated feel in just one frame. And that's pretty much, that's the distinction for me with graphic design and drawing. But it's touchy. It's a touchy subject. And I get why it's touchy. For a lot of artists, you can see if someone has traced something or if someone hasn't. There's a very big difference in the way that certain drawings or certain art comes about. So for example, for me, I can watch someone's time lapse and I can tell if they've traced something. Not always. Now there's always exceptions. There's people that are just geniuses and amazing artists that can create a face that will look hyper realistic, and they can just make it up out of their mind and it'll look beautiful. But most people, it's not really the case. And that's the thing, is sometimes you'll see certain artworks and that most people seeing it aren't realizing how this person developed this piece of art. And sometimes you can tell that they think that people seeing this are blown away because they don't understand how someone can create such a detailed, very specific, focused type of artwork right out of their imaginations. And of course people can do it, but I just think that there's a difference when someone is tracing the whole thing because it's a graphic design versus when someone's just drawing it. It's just 2 different distinctions. It's 2 different things. And I think when people that draw might see it and it might affect them a certain way because they know that it's not drawing. But I mean, I guess it's subjective. I don't even know if that's the right word. But so I mean that's tracing. I think tracing can be, I think if you're gonna trace with intent. Like I was saying, I've had to trace, I've done a project where I had to draw something in a very specific pose and I couldn't find the pose. Or sometimes it'll take you way longer to find a pose than it would take for you to just pose yourself. So what I did is I just had my girlfriend take a picture of me in a certain pose, and then I traced it. And I think I draw so much that once I had the outline and where the lines go, that's all I really needed. I can make up everything else as I go. But that's like a client work. If you're just drawing personally for yourself, I don't really think there's any need to trace unless that's the look that you're going for. Then that's fine. I think that's cool. I've seen some really awesome work that's traced. It's just different from filtering things through your own imagination. It's just a different path. But also for client work, there's some things that you don't want to. There's no reason to draw them, especially if they're not in your wheelhouse. Like if someone asked me to draw an airplane, I could probably make them a cartoon airplane, but it's really more time efficient for me to just find an airplane and trace it, and just copy the bare bones of that airplane and move forward from there. Because it would just take me years to figure out how to draw an airplane and figure out there's so many different airplanes. It just doesn't make sense to have to learn every specific thing in the world to be able to draw it. So sometimes you trace, and for client work, you're pretty much doing like a graphic design, even if it's an illustration, unless it's like a children's book or, certain illustrations don't really apply. But if they want a logo or if they want some sort of scene and there's something that you can't draw, just trace it, or trace it and make an outline with it. Because even back when I used to just regularly draw, I would do the thing where I would take a piece of paper, I would scribble with the side of my pencil on one side of the paper, and then I would turn it over, put it on, I guess whatever it is I wanted to draw, and then I would press real hard on the side that wasn't scribbled on, and it would sort of make an outline. Oh no, that's what you do. I would draw it, and then I would take that piece of paper where I had scribbled on the bottom, I would take that, put it on a white piece of paper, and then, I don't even remember how I did that. I don't remember. It's something like that. Sort of like you're sort of making a really rough, like, carbon copy of whatever you want to draw, and that's how you get like the outlines. I can't even remember. I haven't done it in so long. Back before all the digital drawing days. But yeah, what else was I gonna say? Oh yes, that's the other thing I wanted to mention was like copying artists you like. And I guess it even goes with tracing as well. But I think it can be a really great tool to trace. If you trace the same thing for a week, after that week, you'll be able to draw it pretty well, which means that you're able to pick up certain things about it. Your brain is able to make sense of whatever you're thinking of to be able to draw it. So that's sort of like it becomes like a motor skill. So if there is an artist you like, or if you like Disney cartoons and stuff, I think it's fine to trace them, but just trace them knowing that eventually you don't want to trace them. I sort of did the same thing with comic books. I can't remember if I traced comic books. I might have when I was younger, but I traced them, but I would always get to a point where I was like, well, let me see what I can do if I'm not tracing. I think that's always got to be the goal, is, trace something to learn it, but then eventually I'll always see what you can do without it. Even for my artwork, like I draw animals, but eventually I want to not eventually, but there's so many different animals out there, but I love drawing them. But just with the amount of animals I've drawn already, it gives me the ability to more easily draw animals from my imagination. So if I had to pretty much draw any animal from imagination, I could probably do it. So yeah, if there's an artist that you like, I think the last drawing I traced was, I think it was Shere Khan. And I just liked the way he looked, and I was trying to do it, and I just couldn't get the face right. So I just traced it. I think I might have traced it a couple times. And then I traced it a couple times, and then I just tried to draw it a couple times, and I finally got it. I don't do anything with the tracing. You can just trace something, and then with Procreate, you just double tap and erase it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, I'm always looking for hacks. I'm always looking for the easiest way to get where I want to get to and to draw the way that I want to draw. So I'm always looking at artists that are better than me, that I like. I'm always looking at what they're doing and trying to figure out, what is it about their art, or what is it that they're doing that's making it look so appealing to me, because that's what I want, that's what I need. So that's why I do my tutorials and my videos the way that I do, because I know that there's artists that are like me when I was younger. I mean, I always wanted to see artists draw. Like, I want to see what you're doing. I want to see how your brain interprets this picture of this animal or this person. I want to see how that translates. Instagram is great. I love Instagram, but you're only seeing like the finished pieces. I've always loved like the process. Like, even when I bought like DVDs, like, I would love when they had behind the scenes, and and if it was animated or something, like, I want to see the sketches. Like, I want to see where these ideas came from. That's what I love. So, that's pretty much where I come from. That's why my YouTube channel is the way it is. I like kind of showing where I start, and also, where it goes to, how I finish a drawing. And, I think that's my 2 cents on the matter. I think if you're going to trace, it's cool, but just know that it's different than filtering something through your own mind. Like, it becomes like a tool. You're more like a graphic designer, which is 100% an artist. Unless you trace something and then put your own flair on it. Like, I think if you can twist it and put your own flair on whatever you trace, then you're right back in, the game. Like, you'll just feel better about what you produce if you put it out there, instead of like, tracing something and then being like, oh, I hope no one asked if I, how I drew this. Like, you don't want to feel like that, and you don't deserve to feel like that. So just, if you do trace, just trace with the intent of eventually being able to draw. Unless you're just a graphic designer, in which I say trace away and just get better and better, and just be better than all the other people that might create art that way as well. Just keep tracing, and throw in a little something, just so people know that it's you. Like, you want people to see your work, whatever it is, and you want them to know that it's you. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I don't know if this is the kind of video that people want to see. I don't know if anyone would ever watch this whole thing, but I know I do have a few devoted fans. So if you are still watching, I really appreciate it. You can write pancakes in the comments below, and I will definitely shout you out on Instagram, because if you're listening this far, then you're devoted, and I appreciate you. So you'll definitely get a shout out if you want one. But I'm going to end it there, because I'm going to do some drawing. I think I'm going to do a tutorial of how to draw cute things. I don't know if I was going to do like another short eye tutorial, but I think I'm going to do cute things. I saw a few posts about that in the Facebook group. So sorry for my voice. It's a little hoarse. But anyway, as always, I'm done talking here. Keep drawing, keep it up, keep going, and I'll see you in the next video.